We are finally going to cover CSS. So for those of you that have been kind of cringing because you don't like the defaults, the way the web pages display, this week you are going to learn how to make them look more attractive. So you do need to kind of read some pages in the book. And then you are going to want to work through the lecture demo. And the lecture demo covers quite a bit of CSS. All of the CSS styles that we are covering, we are going to be using pretty much from this point forward. And you'll notice that there are a lot of links to interactive sites. There's also links to examples that you can look at. Okay, so that code that you saw here, you can kind of see how that looks in the example. We talk about the different ways to add CSS to a page. And as far as the external style sheet goes, I've got an example of what it looks like, and this happens to be the style sheet that I've used for all of the pages in this particular class. And by the end of the semester, you guys are going to be able to look through this and you are going to know exactly what all of this means, which is pretty cool. You'll also learn how to do an internal style sheet. And here's a link if you want an interactive example. And then the third way to add CSS is an inline style. So you'll be learning how to do that as well. Then we get into the syntax that you need to use for external style sheets, internal style sheets, and inline styles. And we go through all sorts of different style rules. We do quite a bit with color. So we do talk about how to change the color. You can use color names, RGB or hexadecimal values. I've got links to different sites you can go to and examples of how that looks. Is any one particular way better than the other? It kind of comes down to personal preference. I like hexadecimal, just because I can pretty much create any color I want. I also like RGB for the same reason. Color names are a little bit more limiting, but a lot of beginners find that easier. So perfectly fine to use color names. Okay, so you can change the color of text, you can change background color. And once you start changing color, you should be a little aware of color theory, how to pick complementary colors for your pages or colors that look decent together. And there's a lot of different ways that you can do it. And so this gets into some color theory. And I will tell you what I like to do is I usually have some kind of image in the background. I will actually pull colors directly from the image and then use those in my page. But you can kind of read through this to learn a little bit more about color. For those of you that are curious, we also cover how these hexadecimal numbers work. But this is not something that you need to memorize. It's just, in case you're wondering what these little random numbers and letters mean, they actually do have meaning. So this explains what the meaning is. Then there are a lot of different websites you can go to that will help you with color. And we can take a look at a couple of those. So this actually has what's called a color picker. And you can see that if you pick a color, it's got the different tints and shades, and those are in hex. Okay. And you can also pick colors this way and get the tints and shades. And then down here, as if that wasn't enough, here you can see, you can get different hues. So all sorts of different ways to get color here. And for this site, what I like is you can actually apply some color theory here. So let's say you wanted double split complementary, which has got, three that are kind of analogous, and then they've got the complements on the other side. This is actually something that I like to use, but you can then change some of the colors. And you'll notice that it's all kind of keyed off of this center color. So if you change that center color, you will notice that it kind of changes everything else. And then you've got these hex values that you can use, or you can use the RGB values. Okay, so there are other sites that are just as useful. So I've included those here as well. You can actually upload a graphic to Lunapic. If you go to the file menu and color palette command, Lunapic will look at what colors are used a lot in the graphic, and they will pull out the color and the hex value. So there's a lot of different ways for you guys to figure out what colors you can use. And color does affect mood. And so I did include a little PDF on that. So if you are, picking a site, you might want to take colors for your site. You might want to take a look at this. And then once we learn a little bit about color, how do you apply the color? So in addition to doing background colors, you can do background images. So we've got commands on that. How to change the font. How to use Google Fonts, which actually opens up a whole world of fonts for you. How to change the font size. Okay, and then all sorts of different text CSS rules. And one that I included that is part of CSS3 is text shadow, just because it is absolutely too cool not to not to cover right now. We get into a lot of CSS3 in lesson 9, and I did not want to wait that long for this. So the text shadow will create a drop shadow, but you can also use it as an outline effect. So lots of cool stuff you can do with that one. Text decoration, little underlining effects. Okay, and so as you go through here, these are all things that you may or may not use this semester. I give you a lot of options as far as, what styles you want to apply. There are styles that I require that you apply, but then, you are able to make tweaks and changes to your pages so that they display the way you like them to display. Okay, so these are all different styles that you can use. And so by the time you get done with this, I think you'll have an idea of all the things you can do in CSS. And then throughout the rest of the semester, we're going to be using the CSS styles. So you're going to go through the lecture demo, and then you're going to do the textbook assignment, which is going to give you some practice applying CSS. So you're going to create the lesson folders for this, and you'll notice that we have a CSS folder for an external style sheet and a media folder for our graphics. And then I'm giving you quite a few pages and graphics. And then there are videos that kind of walk you through how to apply the CSS to these various pages. The lab assignment is a little more open-ended. I do have a video explaining it here, but you are basically going to do an internal style sheet for the detail summary exercise that you created in lesson 3. Okay, and in lesson 3, I did the cats one. You guys were able to pick your own topics, but you will be applying CSS to that. And so it's going to be an internal style sheet. These are the different things that I want you to try to apply. And this is an example of what it can look like. And then for your assignment page, you are going to be adding links. And then I also want you to incorporate CSS styling. So you're going to have an external style sheet that you're going to link into the page. And it's going to style the page and the links. So this is a minimum of the different styling commands that you need to use. And here is an example of those styling commands in practice. And this is what it looked like. Okay, so there's 2 different exercises here. You've got the detail summary that you need an internal style sheet for, and you have your assignment page that you're going to do an external style sheet for. Okay, and we are just kind of on the tip of the iceberg for CSS. So there is a little discussion here. And you need to select a CSS property you would like to learn more about and research the property using the internet. Okay, and so, you know, in your book, there are different properties listed that you could research. Do keep in mind that for in lesson 9, we are going to cover all of CSS 3. In your posting, indicate the property you research, provide a link to the article, explain the purpose of the CSS and how it can be used, and then read postings from other students. I'm going to go ahead and post an example. What you guys are going to need to do is read other students' postings and reply to at least one. If nobody has posted when you get to the discussion, you certainly can reply to mine. I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and add a posting now. All right, so I did my little post on a site that I think is kind of cool. The CSS and HTML are always evolving. And so they come out with these new commands that aren't fully incorporated into the language yet. And the CSStricks.com is kind of a cool site because you can see a lot of these commands. And so instead of doing the text shadow to get outlining on your text, you can actually use some newer commands, the text stroke and color. And so this explains how to do that. Okay. And it actually shows you what browsers are supporting it. And so I basically summarized this. Okay, kind of show you the old-fashioned way, the long way of doing it. Okay, and this is, you know, incorporated into the language. It's a standard. And then I kind of show you the new way. Okay, and because it's new, it's prefixed with WebKit. What happens if you don't prefix it? The browsers that don't understand it won't be able to display it. But if you prefix it with WebKit, it should still work. And then here is a web page example of how you can apply it. So here I've got the color, the text shadow, which is kind of, you know, what we're used to seeing. I can see that wrapped weird, which I'll fix. And then here's the new way of doing it. And then I applied the old to this heading and the new to this heading. And just so you can see, that's what it looks like. Okay. So that's what I posted, and I am kind of excited to see what you guys find or what you think is interesting and what you want to learn more about. So that is pretty much what we are working on this week. CSS is a lot of fun. I hope you guys have fun working with it. And if you run into any problems or if you have questions, let me know. I did kind of include up here at the top uh, typical problems that people run into when using CSS. And it's primarily typos and upper and lowercase letters. Things are case sensitive and people have typos. I did do a little video on common problems and how to fix them. So if you are running into problems, you might find it helpful to watch the video. Have a great week and let me know if you have any questions.